Morning guys, hey, it's Anna here. How you doing? Say hello if you jump on. Whew. Alright, I'm doing the really cool thing and hanging out in my car after a workout. Because, yes, as usual, something happened during my workout. It's not usually inspired. There we go, I'll do that. It's not usually inspired by other people in the gym because I'm usually like very, I don't know, horse with the blinkers on and I don't pay attention to anyone else. But today, this live stream and what I want to share with you is actually inspired by something I saw at the gym. And it's one of those things that, you know how they always say, well, I don't know who they are, but they always say the stuff that seems really obvious to you and the stuff that is for you is just like, oh my God, of course that's how it is. Like, how could you not know that? Is actually not obvious always to everybody else. And a lot of people are not aware of things and blah, blah, blah. So sometimes, even though it seems really obvious and really like duh to you, it's important to share it if it's something you're passionate about because other people will not know it. That's why people want to learn from you or whatever it is, because for them, the stuff that for you is just effortless and easy and duh is for them something that they're probably still struggling with, right? So what I want to talk about today, let me get into it, say hi if you're there by the way, is fat loss and running, and one of the, I think the most important issue that most people just don't know anything about, and it's like obvious to me why nobody knows about it because it's just not what people focus on. So what I want to specifically talk about is when people get into running for the purpose of fat loss, right? So a lot of people, especially when they first join a gym, and this is, I guess, why it kind of propped up now because all the New Year's resolutioners have joined a gym and they're all kind of finding their feet for the first time. And so a lot of them do end up on the cardio, and because the treadmill is just the easiest kind of thing to work, I suppose, they all end up on there and they start trying to run. Which is awesome. Obviously, they've made a resolution for their health and fitness and whatever it is. And for quite a few of them, it's just obvious, I guess, from my experience. Like, I'm not saying that I can mind read, but I kind of can. And it's kind of obvious that their goal for why they're there is fat loss, right? And so now I've done a whole bunch of videos that you can just look up on YouTube. If you look up Anna Brooks Motivation, where I talk about, and then once you're in like my channel, you can actually look up things about like fat loss or cardio or anything like that. And there's heaps of stuff that you can read up on why cardio is actually really useless for fat loss. So I'm not going to get into that now. That's one thing. That's a whole other thing. And I've done so much stuff on that. So please just check out my YouTube channel. Just look up Anna Brooks Motivation and you'll find my channel. You can see so much stuff there about why, cardio is not the thing for fat loss. What I want to talk about today specifically is something that I think most people don't know anything about. My husband's on his way home and he's just closed the back. That's all right. He'll figure it out. Yep, there it goes. Garage is opening again. All right, so sorry, that's just made me laugh. So the thing that I want to talk about today in regards to it is something that most people don't know anything about, and this is the injuries side of things, right? So when you start when you start running, for example, for the purpose of fat loss, you obviously are over fat, right? So you have more weight, you have more fat than your body needs, which means that you are, hello, just saying hey to my husband, which means that you are obviously carrying excess weight. And if you're not aware of this, running is actually a very high impact activity, right? So you're actually, every time you're pounding the pavement or pounding the treadmill or whatever it is, you're actually putting a lot of stress on your joints, especially your hips, your knees, your ankles, all that kind of stuff. It's actually a very high impact activity. So when you have a lot of fat, excess fat, it's actually it's like you're putting even more weight onto your joints than when you're quite light and that kind of stuff, right? So the problem that I see a lot of the time is people who start off running for the sake of fat loss, as they lose weight, if they do, because again, feel free to check out why this is a completely useless way to lose weight if you're really serious about it, but for the few people that actually do sustain a weight loss from running, you end up in this problem that when you first started running, you developed habits. You didn't really know how to run, right? You just did it because you wanted to lose fat. So you're just like, well, I know how to run. Like I'm walking and then I'm just walking faster and I'm running. However, because you were over fat at the time and because you were carrying excess fat at the time, you would have developed, I guess, ways of running that aren't exactly beneficial for you, right? So it may have been the way that your foot lands on the pavement or on the treadmill. It may be the way that your hips adjust. It may be the way that your knees fall. Your hands, if you're very top heavy like I am, and like I was years ago when I first started like trying to run. I don't run anymore because I just don't like it, and that's a whole other thing. But if you're especially top heavy, you're going to find that you have a very different gait and a very different way that you run, because you're trying to basically stop your boobs from bouncing as much if you're a female, all this kind of stuff. So it all impacts the way that you run. And it's something that if you've never been taught how to run, you're just going to do whatever comes naturally, right? And the problem is whatever comes naturally when you're over fat and when you're you have excess fat, then whatever comes naturally to you is going to tend to be not exactly the best way of doing things, because it's just going to be a way for your body to accommodate to its size and its shape and your level of unfitness at the time. And the problem is if the fat does come off and you actually do, start to lean out and then you continue running because you actually enjoy running. Like a lot of people will lose some fat and then they'll stop running because they realize they only ever did it for the fat loss, and they actually hate it. But if you actually in the process fall in love with running, which a lot of people do, and you then become, quote unquote a runner, and you want to do this more seriously, you've now developed this habit of the way that you're running, the way that your gait is, the way that you actually, the way that you're running, you're physically running, that's not very beneficial for you. That not only is it a high impact activity, but you're now also landing in awkward ways for your ankles or your hips or your knees, or the rest of it, or whatever it is. You've developed a habit of how you're running that's actually making it even worse on the wear and tear of your joints. And because you never got taught, because, you first started, you decided to start running, whether it's in a gym or whether it's just you started running around the block or whatever it is, because you never actually got taught how to run properly by someone who's, someone that's a specialist in running or just a gait specialist or anything like that, because you never got taught that. At the beginning, you actually end up in a position where now you've developed all of this habit about how you're running, and it's just not very helpful, and it's actually causing worse wear and tear on your joints than if you had just started and got someone to actually teach you how to do it and then sort of progress you as the fat came off to go, okay, well, now that, because if you were larger, this is how you needed to adjust your gait. Now that you are smaller, this is how you need to adjust your gait. Not to mention, taking you through exercises to strengthen your joints and everything like that, because that's, the biggest problem with running continuously for many, many years is that your joints do get a lot of wear and tear from the high impact constantly. And if you don't actually do strength training exercises to increase your muscle density, to increase your muscle mass, and to increase your your bone density and that kind of stuff, and your ligament strength and that kind of thing, if you don't actually do any strength training exercises to combat that, you end up with, like a lot of runners, they just can't do it anymore, right? And so that's a whole other thing. And this is why, I've trained a lot of runners in my time as a PT. And this is why I always tell people, if you don't love running, do not do it. Do not do it for fat loss purposes. It's so much easier to lose fat than it is than having to force yourself to run if you don't like it. The only reason you should ever be running is because you love it. And so I've trained plenty of runners in my time who absolutely do love it, and that is what they do. They have that inner passion for it, just like I do, I guess, with weights. And that's fine. And then, when they come and see me, or when they used to come and see me, obviously I'm not a PT anymore, but when they did used to come and see me, I would then give them a strength training program and explain to them why this is so important, and they would implement that. And then years and years and years later, they are still running and they're still amazing and their joints are great, versus the people who just became runners and just didn't even think about any strength training or any sort of, I guess, maintenance for their body or anything like that. Feel free to say hi if you're there, by the way. So that's kind of the thing that I wanted to talk about, that most people just don't realize. And it's, it makes sense that you don't realize it because nobody gets taught that, right? You jump, especially for a lot of people who don't even bother joining a gym, which is fine. And I see it all the time, especially now that it's summer here in Melbourne, and a lot of people have, started their New Year's resolutions, and I can see all these people who have clearly never done running before, or, have just done it on and off through the years, and now, going around, running around the block and all that kind of stuff. And that's awesome. But again, I know how this ends because I've seen it so many times. And, if they give up, great. Hey, Al, thanks for saying hi. If they give up, that's actually better because then they're not going to get those kind of injuries ongoingly. But if in the process of, losing some fat, for the 1% or even less that it actually works for, and that's usually if they don't have any food issues or any, binge eating or overeating issues or anything like that, that's usually the only people that actually running will work for in terms of fat loss. But for the rest of them that, and you get to the stage where you've lost some fat and you've basically you've lost some fat and now you're like, oh, cool, this is actually really fun. I really enjoy running. And if you're one of those people that it does take to, then you end up in this position where, you've developed a really bad habit of how you're running because you're basically running as, quote unquote, the fat person that you were, and you're now running as the person who's lost the weight, but you've still got the same gait, that's still the same. And by gait, I mean, if you haven't heard of that word before, G-A-I-T, gait as in like the way that you walk. So you're still running as that same person, you're still running with the same gait, you're still running with the same habits and everything like that. And so you're at this point where basically you're creating even worse wear and tear on your joints and on your body than if you'd even learned how to run properly, which is still very high impact. And this is why I keep saying, if you don't love running, don't do it. But it just gets even worse. So that's what I wanted to share with you because I kind of realized, I guess, today that a lot of people probably wouldn't be aware of this. And hopefully, if you think this is helpful, if you know that people who are probably going to try taking up running anytime soon or have recently or anything like that, then please, I'd love for you to share this video and, hopefully it'll help them as well just to realize that the maintenance and the taking care of yourself and, as silly as it sounds like to get someone to actually teach you how to run, it's kind of like saying, let's teach me how to walk, and you kind of probably think of that as just kids or people who need rehab. But it's so crucial. It's one of those things that you don't realize while you're doing it. You think it's so simple, and then years on, you've just found that you've got all these problems and all these issues, and you've got early arthritis and all this kind of stuff, and you don't understand why. I'm telling you why right now. I'm telling you why. So, either A, go look on YouTube, look up all of my videos on why cardio is not helpful and therefore why running is not helpful for fat loss in the first place. So if you don't love running, don't do it for fat loss. But if you do find that you love running and you really enjoy this, then invest in someone to actually teach you how to run and take you through a proper gait and check you and make sure that you are doing it correctly so that you can minimize the impact, and then go see a PT and get them to go through a strength training program that you can implement, once, twice a week, that will help the maintenance of those joints, because otherwise, you are going to find that it's just going to wear and tear a lot faster than you would have imagined. And that's going to pretty much suck if you originally started fitness, if you originally started running because you wanted to take care of your health and your fitness and your body, and you just end up tearing it down instead. That would suck. And it does suck, and I've seen people do it. So that's why I'm trying to share this and help people with it. So, if you think this is helpful, I'd love for you to share this video across, and let's see how many other people this will help. If you're watching this as live or a replay, please feel free to leave a comment if you think this is helpful, if you think this is interesting or something that you didn't know before. I'd love for you to tell me so that I know that I'm not just telling stuff that everybody already knows. And apart from that, I think we're done. I hope you have an amazing rest of the day, whatever you're up to. I'll talk to you soon. Remember, live life on purpose. Bye. Oh my God, finish.